Praise the Lord, church. I like what I feel in here this morning. Feels good. Feels like a Pentecostal church this morning. Let's give a hand to our praise team. That's amazing. And yes, I'm doing it for brownie points because I'm married to the praise worship leader. Well, it's truly a pleasure to be up here again. I really do appreciate the opportunity. I want to thank Pastor and Pastor Bembry and the ministerial staff for allowing me to do this, and my wonderful family and wife. Very thankful. They stand behind me no matter what. I want to go ahead and pull up a passage in Daniel 10 and 12. It says, "Now I am come to make thee," I'm sorry, I'm a little out of whack here. "Then he said unto me, Fear not, Daniel, for from this first day that thou didst set thine heart to understand and to chasten thyself before thy God, thy words were heard, and I am come for thy words." You may be seated. If I could have titled this, and I don't normally title any of my 5 spots, but it just felt right, it would be Delayed Prayer. Because I think we've all prayed about something at some point in our life and did not get an immediate reaction, did we? Some of us might still be praying for it after a couple days, a couple months, some years. Sometimes it doesn't happen right when we want it to, and we don't understand why. Daniel did the same thing. In this passage, Daniel had a vision of what was coming in the future. Times of war and great hardship. Daniel mourned. He would not eat. He didn't drink any wine. He didn't put any fragrant lotions on. I don't know what that really meant. Maybe that meant taking a bath. I probably should have looked into that one a little more. But said he didn't put fragrant lotions on for 3 weeks. So he was looking pretty rough, I'm sure. And he prayed this entire time. For 3 weeks, he heard nothing, saw nothing. It was just silent. This leads me to a personal story that happened recent. So, it's the month of October. It's now hunting season. And I spent all last month, 40 hours, getting my club ready. Everyone in the club has to get it ready. You got to go and clean the trails. You got to trim the limbs. You got to just take care of the club necessities, vaccinate the dogs. That's always fun. And it's hunting season. Now I'm excited. All that work's going to pay off. Well, during that time, though, we would take breaks. Now, when we take breaks, we would eat. But one of the perks of being at the club in the middle of nowhere is we have a gun range there. So everyone's going to go to their trucks, grab the biggest artillery they have, and we're going to go and test out the guns. So I was stoked. So I've shot my fair amount of firearms over the years. And one of the things I've never shot, though, until recent, was a muzzleloader. Muzzleloader is exactly what it sounds like. Now, for those who are not familiar with what a muzzleloader is, it's a take on the old school way guns work. If you ever watched one of those old school movies and you saw them pouring the powder from the powder flask in there, and then shove a bullet in there and ram it in there, that's what a muzzleloader is, and we still use those today. Muzzleloader, to me, is like one of the most closest, to me, fair hunting weapons you could use. Because that and a bow are the only 2 weapons you can use, and you only have 1 shot. Because once you shoot it, they're gone if you miss. So a muzzleloader and a bow are the 2 that I've really wanted to learn because I want to be a fair hunter. I'm not going to just take an AR out there and then just go to town. That's irresponsible hunting. So what it's done, what you do first is you load the black powder in a measure, and the measure is the exact amount you need for that particular fire. And then you pour it down into the muzzle. And then you put the bullet, you put it on there, and you shove it down there with a ramrod, they call it, until it seats right onto the black powder. Then you put what they call a primer, which is what caused the ignition once the hammer hits it. And then you close it, and you put it up, and now you're ready to fire. It's a little bit of a process, though, especially if you're not used to doing it. So it takes time. When the steps were shown to me from a friend of mine, he let me use his muzzleloader. I did exactly what he told me, exactly how it was. But the one thing, and I don't know if he was doing it as a joke, he was smiling the whole time, but I don't know. It was kind of misty that day. It was kind of a little drizzle, but it wasn't anything to stop us from working. So I got everything ready. But it was, like I said, it was wet outside. Now, as I looked down the scope at my target about 35 yards away, I braced for the recoil and pulled the trigger. But I heard a pop, but that was it. Nothing happened. So it sounded like a cap gun, like when you were a kid. You just heard a little pop, but there was no recoil. There was nothing. There's no flash. I was, okay, what do I do now? So what happened was I was about to inspect my firearm, because that's what you're supposed to do to see what happened. My buddy pushed me in my shoulder into the barrel and said, "Do not move, wait." And next thing I know, within seconds, it fired. Now, for some of those who don't realize what happened, when the black powder gets wet or any moisture gets in it and the ignition happens when the primer gets hit, it's called a slow burn. It's where the ignition happens, but the moisture is causing it to not kick off as fast. But something did happen. All I had to do was wait. But you have to wait and be ready for it. Because if I wasn't ready for that and he didn't push me in that place, that gun would have flew back that way about 20 yards because it was a 50 cal. So, it wouldn't have not been pretty for anyone. But this was a lesson I will not soon forget, because if anything I learned was after pulling the trigger and nothing happens doesn't mean it didn't work. So Daniel had also learned this, even though his prayers weren't answered immediately, God heard his prayers and answered him in his time, in 21 days. 21 days he spent fasting, praying, living for God. Nothing happened, but God wasn't ignoring him. He was working on his time. So church, I've come to you today to be an encouragement, that even if it seems like our prayers haven't been heard, that we may still be fighting a battle that we don't think we can fight anymore. Perhaps you've been praying about something for days, months, like I said, even years. Praying for faith on something that you've wondered why it hasn't been answered yet. So God has not failed you, though. He will not give you more than you can handle. So keep that weapon of prayer tucked into your shoulder. Keep your eye on that target and just wait. Because when God answers, brace yourself, church. The impact of your prayers will come back stronger than you would ever imagine. Be blessed.